me so fucking pumped up.
Dude, I'm telling you, we better never do camera because I'm like headbanging the whole time. If we ever do like hey everybody, we should probably get this show going. It's 40K, and I am one of your hosts. I am Shane.
And I'm Drew.
And of course, this is the 40K podcast where we talk all things 40K. Except today, look at that, I rhymed. Today is going to be a little bit more into the other realm of the Games Workshop industry, fantasy, AOS, and what's to come with possibly Old World. So that's going to be the show today. Hoping we can stay on track, which is something that we don't often do here, but we do try. We do try.
So, yeah, we give it a go, but
we give it the good old college effort, and then we get pissed drunk and blackout.
God, upon editing these episodes, I'm always like, we start off so good. We start off so good every time, and then we just devolve into like the most random shit. And I'm 20 minutes in, and I'm like, this is what was the title of this episode? What do I title it?
What were we supposed to talk about? So, Drew, we start out these episodes with, of course, our happy place, otherwise known as our invulnerable save. What is your invulnerable save today?
So the Mexican pizza's back. It's going to date this episode a little bit, but I haven't gotten one yet. I went to Taco Bell and they were out of Mexican pizza stuff.
They're out of that everywhere, just in case you're wondering.
So that's a bummer, but I believe they've told me it's back. Kind of like the theme of the episode. I'm being told Warhammer Fantasy is coming back. I haven't seen it yet, but I'm being told that it's back. So my invuln save, keep on believing in the pizza.
Don't stop believing. Hold on to that feeling.
If that's not the commercial when it comes back officially.
Okay, so just out of quick curiosity, to stay on your invulnerable save for just a moment. So they had come out and they basically said, we didn't expect to have such demand for it, so we ran out of ingredients for it. But I'm trying to think, what in there is an ingredient they don't have readily available at all times?
It's the love.
At a Taco Bell.
It's the love.
Is it the love?
There's love in every Mexican pizza. Plus, they got I don't know if they're going to change the packaging or not, but wasn't the packaging like costing them like $1 billion a year?
It was something stupid, like they claim that was part of the reason they were discontinuing it in the first place. So
it didn't do no good. I don't know why. Like, what was so expensive about it? Because it didn't protect the pizza at all. It looked like they shook that son of a bitch every time they gave me one. Welcome to the Mexican Pizza Podcast. Shane, what's your info save?
I got like a twofer / mortal wound, and I'm gonna start with the first one. That's also a mortal wound, and that is, new Imperial Guard models have been shown, meaning Daddy is gonna lose a lot of money because I'm gonna be buying a lot of Imperial Guard shit when it comes out.
It's the new HQ.
They had a new a Creed model, but it's his daughter
who somehow got the jacket.
Yeah, some still got the jacket. Then there's the new Sentinel model, which looks pretty sweet. Although they said there's going to be like a scout version that's not going to have any of the armor plating on it. So I really want to see what they're going to do with that. And then the third model that they really revealed was, and I'm going to probably say this wrong because I can never remember how to say it, the Kazgrin.
Those are like the elite, right?
Yeah, the elite heavy-duty Imperial Guardsmen. And I saw them, I'm like, oh no, they're coming soon. That means, I'm going to be taking it on the chin on this one.
And lore-wise, they're different than the Stormtroopers were, right?
Yes, as far as I remember, yeah, they are different. They're like a whole division, essentially, on their own. They're elite, but they're still firing las guns, so... they almost feel like they're actually the Military Tempest scions, like, because they use hotshot las guns instead of hotshot volley guns. But whatever, I don't care. I don't play guard because they're good. I play guard for the hilariousness of just dumping so many bodies on the table that you just don't know what to do. That's why I do it. But the second part was, as I was telling you briefly before, is I had to take my son to go get his booster shots. He had to get his Tdap and his meningitis vaccines. And we were in the doctor's office, and of course he's 11 and he is having a mini panic attack knowing that he is about to get his arm stabbed. He was super upset when he found out there were 2 separate shots. He was really, really upset when he found out they had to get him in each arm. He was not a fan of that idea either. The best part, though, comes in is when he actually gets the shot, because the first one, the meningitis one, he goes, fuck! really loud. Through the whole office could hear him. But the best part is, like, she gets done and she pulls the needle out and goes, oh, that wasn't that bad. Like, he literally yelled fuck for no reason. He even admitted as much, as he goes, well, I just assumed it was going to hurt, so I yelled an obscenity to just get by it. I'm like, all right, cool. Then came the Tdap. Now, if you know what that one is, that's your tetanus booster. That one is unpleasant. I'm an adult, and I don't like getting that one. That one hurts your fucking arm for a few days after. This one did not go as well, and he tensed up, so the needle was like kind of stuck in his arm.
Oh no.
And the whole time he is going, shitting fucking shit, fuck, shit, shitting fuck. And like, it sounds normal coming from me, but he's 11, and it is goddamn hilarious to listen to an 11-year-old drop out shitting fucking shit. You just don't get like happiness like that, and that is my invulnerable save for today. It's great dad moment, because I can't get that. I could tell that kid to curse, and he won't do it. Sudden unexpected pain, poof, they come rolling out of him like a rap lyric. So I was thinking we would start the journey from where we started many years ago in fantasy, because you were reluctant to do fantasy in the beginning. Me and your cousin were insisting on trying it.
Yeah, we had been playing 40K at that point for, I think, what, 2 years,
2 years, I think. Yeah.
And yeah, he wanted to get into fantasy. You were also like, oh, I'll play.
Well, what for me, it was like I wasn't too sure, and then I saw the vampire counts. I was like, "Oh, those look awesome!" Like, I had no fucking idea what the game was about, how it worked. But I looked at vampire counts armies. I was like, "Oh, they raise the dead. I'm in. Give me those guys." It was terrible decision making on my part.
This is before I had my Dark Eldar. I know that because that was when we got out of fantasy and back into 40K.
Right.
I think you went right out. You were the first to buy models. You went out and bought like an undead army.
Yeah. No, I dove in hard.
My cousin got Skaven. That's what he wanted to jump in and play. So he ended up buying. They had a box set. It was High Elves and Skaven. So he's like, "Do you want to go in on it with me? I really want the Skaven. It's High Elves. You can play them." I really didn't care what army I played. I was like, "I don't want to play this game. I don't care what army I play. Sure, I'll take High Elves." Little did I know that
You were gonna have the most fun out of all of us.
yes, High Elves were fantastic because I got to take all of my anger and frustration with having to play fantasy out on you two. Oh my god. Oh, hey. Oh, it's this model, Techless? Oh, okay. Yeah, he's supposed to be a good wizard. I don't fucking care. Sure, I'll buy Techless. It's like, oh, there's a magic phase in this game? Oh, okay. That's cool. What abilities does Techless know? Yeah, pretty much all of them.
Yeah, everything.
Oh, and you can try to deny my psychic abilities. Yeah, no, you can't, because he's got this rule that says Techless can do whatever he wants all the time. So
Yeah,
this
dude,
goes off, and I don't peril on the warp because I think I got to re-roll my perils of the warp.
but the overpower still works, so we can't even fucking challenge it. Like, it was,
Yeah.
you had no reason not to just throw as many dice at any spell you wanted. Like, there was nothing that stopped you.
The only thing that stopped me was my own greed. If I wanted to throw fewer dice at something because I wanted to try to, I think he could. I could be wrong on this, but I think he could cast damn near like 7 spells or something like that. I mean,
I think it was like 6 or 7 spells a turn, and like it was like, because back in old fantasy days you had the pool of die, so you had, there was like a set number that you got, and then you rolled, and then you added your roll to that set number, and that was your power pool.
Yep.
And then you would basically gamble so many dice on a skill. So like you'd say, I'm going to cast this and I'm going to throw, oh, let's say 4 at it. I need a 10 to pass it.
Yes.
and you
Yeah.
throw your 4 dice, and oh, look at that, I got a 15, so it passes. Then I have just, I think it was like you had your wizard level plus each additional wizard. That was your base pool level at the time. I could be wrong.
I
It's been a
believe that something
long
like
time.
that, yes. Because
But
like Teclis
essentially,
was like a 6 or a 7, and that was how many spells they know and they can cast or something like that.
you were, oh, if you were the defender in the psychic phase, you were always at a disadvantage because you had less power dice, like power pool dice. So if he threw 4 and all I had was 6 dice in total, I'm not gonna. I had to beat a 15. So it was just like, well, no, I'm gonna save it. I'm gonna wait until something else comes along that maybe is more important to him, so I could throw all 6 of my dice at it. And then you'd save them, and your fucking bitch ass would throw another spell down. I'm like, nope, that's not the one. And then you'd be like, okay, now it's time for Occam's Mind Razor, and that was the one. You didn't want Occam's Mind Razor to go off because that made your guys' melee units fucking way overpowered. And then what do? You'd throw like 6 dice at it, get 2 6s, and the 6 dice I held on to the whole time, I couldn't fucking do anything
It was
with.
like all Teclis needed was doubles of any kind, and then it counted as rolling double 6s, so you
Yeah.
couldn't deny it. And what Occam's Mind Razor did was it made my elves' initiative become their strength. So they were like initiative 7 or 6.
Yeah, they're 7 because you became strength 7, initiative 7.
They had always strikes first. So my elf spearmen who were hitting like extra ranks because they were using spears would just come in and hit you for like, I don't even fucking know. It'd be like 24 strength 7 hits that would just bleed your fucking rank and file dry. And then by the time you got to fight back, you were already so weakened. And then my next magic phase, what am I gonna do? Occam's Mind Razor again.
Yeah, there was like, it was a rinse repeat style situation, like, and then on top of it, the way old fantasy worked was you couldn't target a leader unless they were literally out in front and all alone. You couldn't target them for anything. So all you do is hide Teclis behind 40 or 50 men, and he just chill. And he'd be like, yep, I'm going to cast this, I'm going to cast it. You get a skill, and you get a skill. He was the Oprah fucking psychic phase, or the magic phase. And then you could fucking, literally, he had a one-time use thing that he could, like, as soon as you cast a spell, he could throw his thing down, like, yeah, you're done doing that for the rest of the game. And for me, as a vampire count player, like, that's terrifying because I need to be able to res my guys. Like, that's just how the world works for the vampire counts. And to have him be like, oh yeah, he can't do that anymore. It's like, oh, cool.
Yeah, but I will say, I know Teclis and High Elves were terrible for you two to play against. It was what saved fantasy for me because it took a game I had no interest in, and then giving me the ability to just fling around magic with such disregard and at such a potent level. Oh my god. I fell in love with fantasy after like the first game I played with Teclis. I was like, okay, I get it. I love this. This is fantastic.
Yeah. Meanwhile, we're like, I don't want to play this anymore.
I mean, the way that it functioned, it was different enough than 40K to where uh, you and I still stayed with 40K. I know everybody else kind of dropped out and
Went
pure
fantasy.
fantasy,
Yeah.
but it was unique enough to where they gave me different. I mean, it felt like playing different games.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
When you played a game of Warhammer Fantasy back in the day, the movement of your troops could win or lose you a battle. And I know you could probably argue, well, in 40K, if you move your guys out in the middle of nowhere and they get gunned down. But in fantasy, it was to such a heightened degree where if you point somebody in the wrong direction or you move them wrong, like they can't swivel and shoot on the spot. Like you have ruined this unit, or now you've left them in a position to where their flank is exposed. And in that game, I mean, being hit from the side or being hit from the back really affected the way your troops would fight in combat.
The way fantasy worked is when it came down to the morale phase, if you had a unit in front of you, it was kind of a 1-to-1 thing. You lost a guy, I lost a guy, we're pretty much dead even. Nobody's really losing. But if you had a guy in the front and then you had a guy to my side, and I lost 7 guys to your 3 guys. Not only did I lose 4 off my leadership, but then I lose an additional one because you're on my flank. Like I lost more leadership because of that. And then because I played undead, so we were what was known as like basic. What was it? Fearless. Was that what they called it? I can't remember what they
I
called
think
it.
you were. I think it was just a universal rule, fearless. Yeah.
Yeah, so basically my guys wouldn't fucking fall back. So what happened was anytime I lost a battle, like a combat, I just lose that many more guys in the combat.
Oh yeah. What was it like? Unstable or something like that?
Yeah, so if I lost 4, I'd lose an additional 4. So I'd lose like 8 guys at a time. And it's just like, why do you have 40 zombies? You're about to fucking see. Like, there's a reason there's 40 of them in there. 'Cause they're just going to get bogged down and, get chewed up.
They're a tar pit, and that's it.
Going back to your point of like when people are like, well, yeah, if you move this unit, this was so much more wildly different because you had movement trays and you could angle them, but those angles fucking mattered. They were important. You had to make sure that you were constantly playing this cat and mouse game with your opponent of like angling your troops just right, so he can't get to your flank. He could still stay on your front side, but your next turn you might be able to flank him. And it was like this constant back and forth of like trying to get that flank, trying to get that rear attack, like whatever you could do.
It felt more like a chess match than 40K does to me.
Yeah, no,
Especially current 40K is much more fast paced. This was
a slog.
I've positioned this melee squad to support my archers. Where if you try to charge my archers, they're there to come in and counter charge and intercept you, and then I can move my archers over here and reposition them. They're going to be at a negative to hit.
Not to mention you had arcs too. Like you couldn't just fire any old direction.
When you were playing it, oh man, it was such an intense game.
Yeah, you were way more interested in that tactical movement, figuring out where you're going to go, and trying to get into your opponent's head.
Yeah, it was less forgiving.
But who could forget cannonballs going through ranks like they did? That was another thing that I loved. If I fired a cannonball directly at your unit, it didn't just hit the front line, it literally mowed a line through your men. It wasn't just like, oh, it hit and it does this much damage. No, it hit and it cuts a hole into your army.
It felt more thematic, which for you and I mean, that's the best thing you can do for a game to get us to like it.
Right, yeah, that'll sell us on any game really quick.
One of the other pros with Warhammer Fantasy was the armies that were in that game, the uniqueness to them. Skaven were really neat to see in action. I liked how they had that kind of unstable war laser beams and the giant hamster wheel of death.
The Doom Wheel, because I remember I put 60 zombies against it, and it's like he was so frustrated because he wanted to move it against me, and I just blocked it with a 60-man block of zombies, and he kept grinding them up, and I kept raising them back, and he kept grinding them up, and I just kept raising them back, and his Doom Wheel couldn't go anywhere. It was just like caught in bodies.
Spinning in place, yeah. And then my favorite army back in the day that I
stuck
loved
in the
is,
mud.
from an aesthetic standpoint, and just I've always was the lizard men.
Yep.
I loved that army. I always liked like in fantasy games. I always loved like the lizard man archetype. That aesthetic has always fascinated me. I just like that. So to have an entire army, there's like the chameleons that have like a little blow dart. There was like the skinks or whatever that have the little blow darts and stuff like that. I loved that army. I never got to play them because when we got in, they were expensive. They were a lot of the models were metal. I don't even know if they ever got out of metal for the most part, but it was kind of like a Dark Eldar thing. When we got into the game, I was like, oh, you probably don't want to play that. And I had already at that point amassed such a large high elf army that it wasn't really worth it for me to jump over.
You guys ended up going and buying a secondary box to split. You guys ended up with 2 of the starter boxes, and that's like how you rapidly built your guys' armies up, wasn't it? Like you guys got 2 of those.
Yeah, I think I actually got 3 starter set halves because nobody wanted high elves.
Well, the guy that in our local game store, he used to split those starter sets up and then just sell them as individual parts.
Yeah, if you wanted, you could come in there and you could request and say, hey, look, this box set has Space Marines and Orcs. I just want the Orc half. Okay, that's fine. And he would just charge you half and give you that half of the set. Then he stopped doing it because, like, with, I kind of saved the day, but with the Warhammer Fantasy, that set, everybody came in and wanted Skaven because they were a Horde army. and nobody wanted high elves because they just I don't know if they weren't popular or what, but in that meta of that group that we lived in, nobody wanted high elves. So I came in there and I was like, "Do you have any of the high elf set?" He was like, "Yeah, how many do you want?" It's like, well, I already have one." He's like, "You want two of them? I'll give you a deal." I was like, "Okay." So I went from having a small starter set of high elves to having like 60 archers,
Yeah, you
30 swordsman elites, and I mean it was like I went from nothing to full fucking army. I bought techless. I think I bought one bowcaster, and I was good.
yeah, that was the graviest deal you could get. I wish Vampire Counts ever had something like that at the time because I would have been all over it. Because Vampire Counts, another horde army that just fucking how many times I glued myself together, fucking putting skeletons together. It's fucking frustrating as shit. Because there's like they had just this little itty bitty hole drilled into the shoulder bone that you had to dab with glue and then stick onto your guy and then, hope that you don't glue yourself to it because you got 100 more of these to do. Fuck, that was annoying.
And that is a con I would say with fantasy, unlike 40K where they were really working to update the range or at least, refresh some of the kits so that they look nice, but they also went together so much easier. I mean, older 40K models were not very kind in comparison to what they are today.
No.
You could
God, no.
snap fit half this shit together. I'll go back to it. I know I talked about it in the last episode, but the Chaos Knights. I mean, you literally can just like dry fit the whole thing together,
Right.
and it almost stays together. Like it's designed where it's like, oh shit, like this locks in. You don't glue this. You don't glue this piece either. Yeah, you don't glue that, so that the whole thing articulates still.
That's
Fucking Warhammer Fantasy. It's like, yeah, hey, the horse is plastic and the knight on it's metal and super heavy. Good luck, son of a bitch. You're on your own.
lots of luck,
And
fucker.
some of the armies suffered more than others. Like that high elf kit that I bought, that was a newer kit, so it went together fine. But everything was single pose, snap fit. I didn't have really any options as to,
Right.
well, I want this swordsman to be holding it this way, and I'm going to build this swordsman, and he's got this pose where it's by his side. No, it looked like 30 of the exact same model, but it's fine. I didn't care at the time.
Especially back then, because we were definitely more into the game than the hobby. We were like, fucking build it and get it on the field. Who gives a shit? No, I don't care. I don't need it painted. Just get him on there.
Exactly. Yeah, I had gone from having a 40K army that I really was kind of Space Marines were burning me out, and then to jump into a game that I didn't care to play, and I was just like, "Fucking, I don't fuck care." And yeah, I mean, they ended up being perfect because they fit on the trays um, really well. Like the way that they were designed, they were very narrow. Like everybody had like their weapons kind of like tucked in. Got to tuck those
Right, yeah.
elbows. And then for you, like zombies, I mean, I remember you trying to fit them onto movement trays,
Fucking
and they were all kind of hunched over in different ways, and
arms are,
elbows
yeah,
jutting
elbows
out.
are sticking out, and arms and spears and fucking hoes. Because they're farmers. They're farmers that I rose from the dead. Like after I butchered them all, I brought them back. And their arms are all gangling out. They're like trying to hug each other. Some of the most frustrating shit was when, like, because the game required you to play where it lays, essentially. If a fucking blast template hit the center, you're pulling from the center. You're not pulling from the front rank because that shit made a difference. You'd have to spend a turn reforming your lines. Like that was part of like the game. Like so you couldn't just like, oh, I'm just gonna peel these guys off the front. Well, no, you got hit in the rear. You got to take the guys off in the rear and then reform your ranks on your next turn. So pulling a fucking zombie out of the middle of that shit, like, all right, I'm gonna try to expertly Tetris this guy out of there, and I end up pulling 6 more guys off, and I'm like, you know what? I don't give a shit. They all die too. Why not?
Well, yeah, movement trays in general, they were a necessity because every army in that game was effectively a horde army. So you needed movement trays just for simplicity of moving all those people, but they were kind of a pain because you had to buy them separate and then assemble them. And say you have a 30-man squad of archers, you can pretty much assemble them in any orientation you want. You want them to be a wide, skinny 2-row format? Okay. You want them to be in like a 3 wide box formation. Okay, well, you need to build a movement tray for each of those different formations for if you want to mix it up each time.
And don't forget too, you also had skirmisher options too, where they just you kind of spread them out.
Some armies had that. I know that Lizardmen were big on that.
And Beastmen. Beastmen was another one big
Yep.
on skirmishers.
That was just another step to it where fuck, I don't have, I remember coming over one time to play and I forgot all my movement trays. I had put them in a different box and I wasn't thinking. I was like, are you fucking kidding me? So I borrowed some of your movement trays and you didn't have enough. And so I was just like, okay, well, this piece of paper, I'm just going to slide it around and my guys are on there.
We were so poor.
Yeah. It wasn't the biggest inconvenience, but it was, I remember it like, if you forgot those, you were fucked.
All I can think of now, though, too, is like 3D printing and how awesome that would be for old school fantasy at this point. Like to be able to 3D print off some trays and just have them.
Yeah.
Like, because that was expensive. And then you had to cut it all down, glue it all together. Fucking nightmare.
A lot of people use plasticart or they would use
Right.
balsa wood. I mean, you could use it whatever you wanted.
The idea of having to cut it all up and build it, it's still hard to fathom. Like the idea that I could just go in, take an STL file, throw it into a 3D printer, and print 40 fucking trays overnight, and boom, I've got 40 fucking trays. Like I'm like they're already fitted, they already got their little sidewalls up. It's like I wish I had these things when I was playing it regularly. Like it would have been amazing.
It's funny. Back in the day when we were playing it, the setting seemed so fantastical. Once you got into it, like once we started playing it and I was hooked, and you start reading about the lore, Tomb Kings and the vampire counts, there's a steam tank that the Empire can use, lizard men. I was like, this is a wild fucking setting, man. This is like Lord of the Rings, but ramped up. Look at all this shit.
Right.
You got spells that last forever, purple sun going around sucking up entire platoons. You can turn people into a bunch of statues of gold. And then Age of Sigmar.
Bluey! It's like, he blew the fuck out of fantasy and introduced Age of Sigmar.
I mean, even when they were ramping up to Age of Sigmar and they did Winds of Magic.
Yeah.
And then you go into End Times.
Yep.
With all of everybody's armies now getting a super HQ, all of these awesome models. We're ramping it up. What more could Warhammer Fantasy people want? And then everybody died. Which brings us to Age of Sigmar. Hey, don't worry. All of your old friends are there. Teclis, yeah, he's still there. But now he's like a god or something. And hey, Archaon, yeah, he's still there too. But now he's also like a god. And they're fighting over Realmstone. And what is Realmstone? I don't know.
Look, I like Age of Sigmar. I've watched a lot of bat reps on it. I've played a lot of Warcry. I like a lot of the fundamentals that it's brought over. In fact, I honestly feel like Age of Sigmar is the beta testing ground for what they're going to do in 40K. Because it feels like what works in Age of Sigmar also somehow makes it into 40K in some way, shape, or form. There is one maligned rule that everyone seems to universally hate for Age of Sigmar, whereas I'm borderline indifferent, but I could change it to where I would love it. And it's the rule of essentially momentum. So let's say me and Drew are playing a game and I go first and he's second. Well, at the end of that first battle round, it doesn't just come back to me. We roll off. And Drew has a chance, if he rolls higher, that he gets a back-to-back turn. And a lot of people play the game with that in mind and have a hard time deciding if they want to be first or second because they're thinking, if I go second, I might get that back-to-back and I can really swing the battle in my favor. And I've seen it where it literally breaks a game, where somebody gets a back-to-back turn because they had a really good first turn and then they get that back-to-back. And by the second battle round, the game's pretty much decided. And it kind of sucks. I won't lie, it does suck to watch a battle report where if this guy gets it, game over. He's in the perfect position with all his troops and whatnot. He's gonna win. There's no way he could lose this game at this point if he gets the double turn. So me, I like it. I like the randomness of it. I like the go back and forth. There is a way though I would do it differently, and I'm kind of jumping a little bit ahead here to old world, but something that I would do is say, instead of just making it a roll off, let's say, Drew, you killed 15 models of mine in your turn, but I killed 20 models of yours. well, what if that just adds to my roll? So, like, for every 5 or 10 models that you kill, you get +1 to the roll to a maximum of, say, 3. So, if I killed 10 guys, that's +1. If I killed 20 guys, that's +2. If I killed 30 guys, and not units, but models, because it's hard to wipe a unit in Age of Sigmar. It's hard to wipe a unit in any of these games. So, I was thinking to myself, well, how would that work? Like, if I made it to where if I killed 20 guys, 20 different models, and you killed 10 different models, and then we both roll off, but I get a +2 and you get a +1, that still kind of balances it out. And it kind of gives it that idea of a real momentum shift. I killed more guys, therefore, momentum swinging in my favor. But that's just my thought on that. I thought that'd be a fun, if you want to try that as a house rule yourself and let me know how that works, email us. Let us know.
I say activation for all Games Workshop. I would love to see you do a unit, I do a unit.
I was going to get to that. You jumped ahead of me even further. So if you have never seen it, I'm drawing a blank. What the hell's the name of it? It's the World War II era tabletop game.
Dust.
Not Dust. Conquest 47.
Shane was close. It was Conflict 47.
Conquest 47 is like if they came up with all this super cool technology ahead of their time in World War II and have like mech warrior tanks and stuff like that. But essentially, the principle is the same. Let's just say you have 12 units and I have 10 units. We each take a die of our color and we toss it into a bag. And then you shake the bag up and then you pull out a die blindly. Whatever die that is, if you're blue and I'm red and I pull out a die and it's blue, you get to activate a unit, move that unit, shoot with that unit. You get to do all the things you would do with that unit right away. But then we reach back into the bag, pull out a die. If it's another blue die, hey, you're going again. You get to activate another unit. You keep pulling a die until no more remain and every unit's been activated. And then all the dice go back in, minus any units that might have been wiped out. Round starts over, shake them up, draw your dice. I've seen that game played a couple times. That's such a unique way of running your activation in a game like that. Because again, for the most part, I've never seen a game where it's been way skewed on somebody having more or less than the other one. Like, it's usually pretty even or very close to even.
Well, what that does is that changes how you're going to possibly use a unit. With 40k and Age of Sigmar, I know that when it's my turn, everything on my side is going to activate. So I can have this unit move up because I know that those two supporting units are also going to activate, and I'm going to be able to position them how I was planning. Well, what if the other two don't activate till the very end? Oh, I have to think about this. I don't know. I like it. It kind of takes me back to Warhammer Fantasy, and it makes movement and things like that even more important.
Yeah, exactly. And I think those kind of activations, that more unique activations, also, I don't want to say makes the game more fair, but it does kind of make the game more fair.
Well, it takes the sting out of you get hit with an entire volley at full strength from your enemy. And then at that point on, you are never full strength against them.
Yeah, one of my biggest gripes, and this goes across every one of Games Workshop's fucking games. We go, hey, Drew, let's do a 2,000 point game. And I go first. There is a high chance that it's not a 2,000 versus 2,000 point game because there's a chance I'm going to knock out a bunch of stuff in my first round. You have less points than me now. Mathematically speaking, you cannot evenly distribute the same amount of firepower that I just was able to put against you. Whereas if you introduce a system like what Bolt Action has, you got to play more conservatively. You're not so reckless with certain units because you're not going to just run in there and go like, they'll be fine because I have all this backup. Those kind of things I love thinking about in these kind of games. Like, I love the idea of like having to think more when you're doing your movement.
One of the areas that I enjoy with Age of Sigmar is all of the different armies
Yeah.
that they have added to the game.
And they all feel unique.
What I used to think back in the day was a pretty out there fantasy setting. I mean, it's you have people riding flying sharks into battle. There's a whole army of like walking sentient tree people. There are dwarves now that just straight up have like power armor and guns.
Yeah, the character and overlords.
Yeah, they have gone in all the different directions now. The thing though that I do not like is that they even have it tied to Warhammer Fantasy. I wish that it was just its own complete contained setting. I have Warhammer TV And so they have that Lore Master show, and it cracks me up whenever they feature. They've done one on Teclis, they've done one on Archaon, and like the Teclis one, it starts out and it's from the beginning of Warhammer Fantasy, and I'm like, yep, following along. And then they get into the end times, and then when the old world was destroyed, and then they start talking about Age of Sigmar, and that's when they lose me, and it's like way over my head. I'm like, what is Realmstone? What is this? What are the realms? I have yet to really get into Age of Sigmar lore wise, but Archaon was the exact same thing. I was like, yeah, this is fucking awesome. Yeah, oh this shit. Yep, I remember that. That's cool. And then they go into the end times, and then the other half of like the lore video is Age of Sigmar Archaon, and I'm like, nope. I once again, I'm lost here. I don't know what is happening.
Well, just like for me, it's like I follow Nagash, the Lord of Dead, and like he was in End Times. He was a big time player in End Times, and now like by third edition, he's already like back to being like Teclis came in and like bitch slapped him down. Like that's like from what I remember reading, it's like Teclis came back, and immediately bitch slapped the fuck out of Nagash and sent him packing.
Nagash is like one of the main bad guys now, where he's like he controls the realm of death. And he recently they had a whole thing where he was siphoning spirits, and I don't know, he's like become Skeletor now. Like, yeah, we'll get you next time. Teclis, they imprisoned Slaanesh and were siphoning souls back from Slaanesh, and some of those souls that they plucked became the Idenith Deepkin. They like came out, and Teclis was like, "No, these souls aren't right. There's something weird with them. They were in the Slaanesh for too long. They've been corrupted." And then they were literally like, "Okay, bye," and they ran away to like the bottom of the ocean, and that's where they stay. And it's to like stay away from Teclis because they're an oopsie that he made. And,
He needs to abort those babies.
yeah. But I like the Age of Sigmar storyline. I just feel like by trying to tie it in and have characters, like you've destroyed the world, like the universe. So the plot holes that you need to fill in, and like you need to jump through so many hoops to get Teclis from Warhammer Fantasy to Age of Sigmar.
Yeah.
Why even try?
Right.
At that point, it's just Teclis is there. It's kind of like a Chaos Demons in 40K and in Fantasy. Well, why are they both in there? You want to know why? Don't think about it.
Yeah.
They're just there.
Fuck you, that's why.
Exactly.
So, I mean, that leads us kind of into the old world and what's to come. They have not said a lot about old world. Old world is going to be total wish listing from us, other than the fact that we do know two things about it. It is going to be the old rank and flank style system. Allegedly will be flank style. They will be bringing back on movement trays. They will be back to lines and stuff like that, and formations.
I'm excited with them going back to rank and file. I mean, at this point, Age of Sigmar is not going anywhere.
No.
And the reason why I never got into playing Age of Sigmar is by getting rid of rank and file. I look at that and I say, well, that's 40K.
Exactly. It's fantasy 40K.
If Lord of the Rings was rank and file, I'd be playing Lord of the Rings. Like, that is a unique style of gameplay that needs a return.
One of my biggest gripes about Age of Sigmar, and partially about fantasy, was the fact that as a vampire comp player, I had no shooting ability. Like none. And there are several armies that have no shooting in the game whatsoever, or very little. And the problem is, there are armies like Caradron Overlords in Age of Sigmar system right now, who are very powerful shooters. They fucking decimate. Lumineth Realm Lords can decimate you in a shooting phase. But guess what? They're also pretty fucking good at melee. So they don't really have a downside. And it's just like, well, fuck, that alienates players. Like, if you're gonna do something like this, you need to make sure that everybody has a fair advantage, like a fair shake at every game. And right now, the shooting armies in Age of Sigmar dominate. They dominate the game, 100%. They win tournaments constantly. They're winning normal just pick up matches,
which is surprising to hear because Warhammer Fantasy, I remember ranged units, they would never win or lose you the game in our experience.
No, the magic phase is what won or lost games in old fantasy. Absolutely. And that's not even just because of Teclis. Just in general, that was a game of magic.
Magic was big, but then like that eventual meat grinder of melee clashes throughout.
Yep.
You were going to get to that phase no matter what. Archers may whittle down some key units to try to give you an advantage, but yeah, it's weird for me to hear that there are like armies that just decimate in the shooting phase, because that was never really the fantasy game.
Yeah, and it sucks. I mean, I still like my vampires. They're called Soulblight Gravelords now. And one of the guys I watch on Mini Wargaming, Luca, he's a big Vampire Counts player, and he was talking about like when he was hearing about the Soulblight Gravelords coming, he was all excited, and he said, "Man, you know, it'd be awesome as if they don't need to give me vampire bowmen, they don't need to give me zombie bowmen, they don't need to give me skeleton bowmen." But vampires their lore is known for dominating societies, and they don't turn you, they just enslave you and you serve them. So why couldn't, since the cities of Sigmar got so fragmented across Age of Sigmar, the argument was, why can't they have just taken over a random city state and just picked up their crossbowmen and their bowmen or their handgunners, and now those guys work for them now? You don't have to give them a plethora of units, but give them one or two able-bodied shooting units.
Yeah.
It just seems skewed to not do that.
You do it one of two ways. You either do that, where, yeah, they have like some kind of ranged units of their own, or give them something where they have a defensive bonus against ranged attacks. Maybe it's like a cloud of bats fly in the air and darkens the battlefield, or you can send them out and they harass ranged units.
I want to say one of the best things about fantasy was the fact that you didn't see there were shooting units all over the place, but they sucked. They were 5+ to hit. You know, they weren't drilling things from a mile out. And I think Age of Sigmar would benefit from, if it's further than this, you got a -1 to hit, add up those -1 to hits, and not have anybody start at like a 3+ ballistic skill. You know what I mean? It's unreasonable.
And like thematically, you know, it gets to a point where everybody is just so overpowered, or it makes certain units seem weak. Like a swarm of zombies coming at me. I mean, a fun thematic rule right there. Again, if you don't want to give vampire counts shooting units, zombies or whatever, you make a rule. Shoot them in the head or something like that, or something where they only take a wound from a shooting attack on a wound roll of 6 or something, like,
Yeah.
do something to represent, like, yeah, you might be hitting them, but they are just a swarm of undead bodies that's just lurching forward, and that arrow might just go right through a rotting rib cage and not do any damage.
Right.
There could be some fun, instead of it just being, oh yeah, what is it? Okay, yep, in here I roll, and my high elf archers just did 11 mortal wounds on you. Okay,
Yeah.
next.
Oh, yeah, I just lost 11 zombies. Cool. I mean, it's, I don't know. That's probably me just bitching biasly, but that's some of the things I'd like to see Old World address in whatever they're coming up with. I had mentioned to you before we started recording, I'd also like different formation patterns. Instead, you still have the rank and file system, but cavalry should be able to, okay, do you want to do a rank and file just straight bar line, or would you rather do a V where you'll do more damage on the initial impact, but you might be at a disadvantage for the remainder of combat, like that round of combat? You might be at a disadvantage until you level everybody out, essentially. Stuff like that. Just stuff that I sometimes think Games Workshop loves to simplify everything too much.
Well, it takes away the uniqueness.
And for some game guys like us that have been around the block for a long time, we want to have a little more of a challenge in certain games, and we don't mind having to look up rules and having a whole bunch of different rules that we need to adhere to, because as long as it makes it thematic and makes it realistic and makes it fun, makes it more random, makes it more just jarring to play, the more fun I'm having.
Yeah, well, because like with 40K, I would say in a lot of cases they've taken out the more thematic rules. Dark Elves, for example, they had a grappling hook that could pull HQ leaders out of melees. This is a weapon that acts wholly unique to like every other weapon in the game. This thing can pull your HQ out of this melee and put him in a new melee, like with these guys.
You weren't fighting over there. You're fighting over here now. Where'd I go just now?
And what they've done with a lot of that stuff is it's like, oh yeah, that stun claw special grappling hook thing, well, now it's just AP2 and 2 damage. Okay, that streamlines it, but it makes it way less thematic and fun to use. Well, it's no different now than like a power sword. So it's cool. I mean, I guess vanilla ice cream tastes fine. I enjoy it, but sometimes I want a little rocky road. Um, Vehicles no longer operate like vehicles. Well, what do they operate like? Oh, they're just like monstrous creatures. Okay, I get it, but it's less thematic.
Yeah, it's less thematic, less unique.
A flamethrower not using the flame template and it operating like any other gun, and it gets X amount of hits, or a grenade, it gets X amount of hits, and if it's a group of 10 or more people that it hits more. I get it. It streamlines the game. You don't have people arguing over templates, but it's just, is there a better way?
I hope Old World brings templates back. Like I really,
Yeah.
I really hope that that's something that comes back because I fucking love templates. Nothing like going shopping.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Here's your pie plate. Go shopping.
Yeah, go shopping. Who's gonna get it?
That kind of stuff. I don't know. I feel like it didn't really bog the game down any more than it already kind of is. I like stratagems. I like all of some of the newer stuff that they've done.
Yeah, no, there's nothing wrong with it, and I like the randomness and the random feel each army.
But that you like the uniqueness and a lot of weapons and the way things worked in older editions. I liked how unique something felt. A tank felt wholly different than a squad of men. And you look at it now, and I mean, just from a game standpoint, Warhammer Fantasy felt wholly different than 40K.
Yes.
Now you show me side by side, and at passing glance, what game are you playing right there?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Is that 40K? No, it's Age of Sigmar. Oh, it looks like 40K. Shut up.
I had a Deepkin. Those look like Drakari to me. No, you're wrong.
Yeah, you're wrong. Fuck you.
That man's not on a boat. He's on a flying shark. Oh, okay.
I see the difference now. Totally.
Yeah. And so with Old World, I'm excited. They've announced 2 new armies that are coming in, correct?
Yeah. Fuck. I was playing them on Total Warhammer 3.
Dragon Emperor or something like that.
Yeah, and then Kislev,
which is like a more Slavic, like Russian. It's like they're like the Russian themed army with ice weapons, and I think they have like a battle
polar
bear.
That was the other one.
Yeah, and they look like what you would have seen in classic Warhammer Fantasy. It's not as out there as Age of Sigmar. I think Age of Sigmar is cool and everything works in that setting, but it's a little too far removed at this point. Like a Stormcast Eternal is going to look way out of place on a battlefield in Warhammer Fantasy.
Honestly, I was going to tell you this too. I'm actually going to go. I think I'm going to go pick up some Annihilators from the Stormcast Eternals and turn them into Paladins for Grey Knights. Like I think that's going to be. I tried it with Sequitors. I didn't like the size. The Annihilators are supposed to be bigger, so I'm going to give that a whirl.
Okay.
And make me some Paladins, because I think I need some unique-looking Paladins. Like guys that look different from just regular old Terminators.
That would be awesome. My Chaos army that I'm building for 40K is... Nothing is a model that it's supposed to be. I think I'm proxying almost that entire army.
You're the Fabius Bile of fucking 40K.
It's just like, what do I have lying around? I got some bits here. I got
jam this in him and jam this over here.
Pretty much. I have so many bits and things planned to make a Trader Guard army. And my God, I hope they announce it soon, because I need to know what are my limits with Chaos Guard that I can have model-wise. And then I'm just going to go fucking bananas. Oh my God, I'm so excited.
I'm not a big Chaos player, but if I was going to play anything, it'd be Trader Guard.
Yeah,
that's just fun, because like you already know that the Guard get zero respect and no one cares about them in the Imperium. Imagine how they feel as heretics.
Well, I just watched they did a battle report for the new kill team box set, and one of the Trader Guards he's like a grenadier, and so he had a special rule where when he dies, you roll a d6 and then a 4+. He explodes and he causes like D3 or D4 mortal wounds to everybody that's nearby him. And That son of a bitch died in like a melee to a space marine and then just fucking exploded on him and killed the space marine.
Like, okay, but this is why I can't play games like that, because I'm not gonna hang him back. I'm literally charging him to whatever the meatiest section of the board is. Like wherever there's the most bodies, that's where he's going. He's going full tilt, running in there.
That's what this guy did. He like
Okay.
he just ran in at a space marine and threw a grenade. The grenade blew up. Like it was like he threw like a frag grenade. It blew up on the space marine's armor. Did nothing. The space marine turned and like shot him twice point blank with his pistol or something like that, and stabbed him and killed him. And as the guy was dying, he pulled the pin on every grenade on his vest and blew the space marine up. And just like to be the sniper that watches that whole exchange on the scope, like what the fuck happened? uh,
Oh, we didn't think that was gonna come back into play, but look at that.
I don't think Ted's gonna make it.
Oh shit.
Either he stabbed the pin off or the guy pulled the pin. Either way, it was not ended well.
Oh shit.
But yeah, with Old World, I'm excited to see that they're staying true and they're not trying to Age of Sigmar the setting of
Yeah.
fantasy. These new armies that they're announcing, I'm excited for. They look awesome. I think they're going to play great. I love that they're already in the PC game. What is the name of the PC game?
Total War Warhammer 3.
Oh, yes. Total War Warhammer 3. I'm glad that they're in there just to kind of help build up hype. But just that they're staying true to classic Warhammer fantasy. That's something that so far makes me feel good to know that they're not trying to change it and make it into something that it's not. The only downside is that it's been gone for so long. We've gotten out of Warhammer fantasy. I'm not really excited at the prospect of buying back into it.
Right.
They're really going to need to sell me. I mean, in reading that Horus Heresy still uses templates and still uses vehicles, and it's still got like the to wound chart, I believe, and the toughness chart. It really makes me want to play Horus Heresy.
Yes. But then it's so generic looking though. That's my only issue, is everybody looks kind of the same. It's really going to come down to a paint scheme thing, and then like, oh, you guys suck.
Well, it's probably going to be a Warhammer Fantasy thing. You look at it from the outside and you're like, no, those are generic looking elf bowmen, and they're fighting humans in weird pants with swords. I don't know. It's not, that doesn't really do it for me when I can be shooting exploding machine gun rounds into fucking the face hugger from Alien while I got people in robot and mech suits trying to keep. That's fucking awesome. And then we played it, and you're like, holy shit! And there's so many more armies and so much more to it. It was a blast. It was almost more intense sometimes than 40K got because of just how in the weeds you had to get with it. And I feel like it's kind of that same situation. Or you look at like Horus Heresy. Whenever I read about the rules, because I saw the exact same thing. I was like, yellow Marines are shooting green Marines.
Yeah.
And they got the same tanks. And they got the same what unless you give them crazy special rules, like what is the difference here? And then I was reading about just like the way that the game plays, and I was like, oh my god, it's like it plays like fourth or fifth edition. And
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah, it's like that. Yeah, I've read it, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to do it.
I want it so bad. I almost at this point regret
the thing is,
having gotten into it.
When it comes to Old World, they've got me with Grand Cathay because I'm a big like Japanese folklore, like that, like mythology kind of stuff. I love that shit. I love the artwork that comes out of it. So they've got me right now on the ropes. They haven't knocked me out yet because I got to see all the models and see what they got planned. But whoo-wee, it's going to be hard to say no.
And I remember when we used to play fantasy, people would create their own like fan factions.
Yep.
And Cathay was one of them. Yep. There was a bunch of them. There was like
there are
5 or 6
some models on Titan Forge of like a samurai fantasy army that are fucking awesome, and I would absolutely rock those out if I knew what I could proxy them as. So once again, I just wait and see what Old World is going to bring us, and hopefully it's all good. Hopefully they don't screw the pooch. They have been taking a long time with this. They still haven't even given us a release date yet. And I mean, they first gave the first teaser announcement probably like fucking 4 years ago. So to make a long story short, if they fuck this up, man, they're gonna have a boatload of people pissed off with them. So they need to be treading carefully.
Yeah, I mean, I was annoyed when they were like, yeah, it's gone. And you don't have to use square bases. Like, once they announced that, like, oh, there's no movement trays in Age of Sigmar, and you don't have to use square bases. And new model kits are going to be using only circular bases. And it's like, okay, so you're phasing the game out completely.
Yep.
The armies got put into the faction of order and the faction of chaos. And it's like, okay, but what about, like the human realms? They got like they were super weird. It was like, oh, you want to play humans? Well, there's the Stormcasts, and it's like, okay, well, yeah, there's Space Marines and Age of Sigmar. I get the equivalent that you're doing here. But what if I just want to play like regular humans with a steam tank? And you've gotten in more into Age of Sigmar than I did, but like, didn't they just recently put the free realms or whatever they call them back into the game?
Yes. Yeah. Okay, so I'm not 100% sure if it's been released yet, but they've announced that they're going to create a new book for them that's going to help kind of solidify them. I don't know if it's come out yet. It might have already come out yet. I might have missed it. But essentially what it's going to do is it's going to take the cities and make a human army again, like it used to be, like the old empire was. Uh, right now it exists, but it's really fucking disjointed because you can have Stormcat. Like you have to have like other factions helping them essentially, like to make them even viable. Like you got to have Stormcast Eternals helping them or some shit like that. Supposedly, what this is going to do is this is going to help create a true human army to work with in Age of Sigmar, which is cool.
Okay.
Which is cool. I'm not against it, but
Yeah,
again,
no,
as much as I can sit here and go, I like Age of Sigmar. I liked Fantasy better, and I'm gonna probably like Old World better. It's just I get my fix out of 40K through 40K. Like I don't need Age of Sigmar to fix that. Give me that fix. I've got something that gives me that fix. Now I need something that gives me the opposite end fix. That rank and file system, that more slog, more tactical prowess. Like, I don't know. It's just I'm fucking weird, man.
No, I agree. It was its own game, and what they replaced it with is cool, but it's just not the same.
You ever notice how we say we're gonna do like we're gonna do like a half hour, 40 minutes.
Well, this is an hour and 16 minutes, but after I get done trimming out all the fat, we're probably at a good 20-minute episode.
Oh, any final thoughts for anybody?
Oh,
that's it. That's the show for people.
Okay. This is a question for Games Workshop and for Taco Bell. Why are you going to take it away if you're just going to bring it back at a later date when I'm in no position to be able to get it now?
Dude, I think that's the most serious and valid question that we have had posed at the end of an episode so far. I think
I want Warhammer Fantasy, and I want a Mexican pizza, and I've been promised both of them are returning, and yet, where's my fucking fantasy and pizza?
Where's your fantasy pizza?
Where's my fantasy pizza?
So, I think that brings this episode to a gentle close rather than a big bang.
I'm sad. I'm angry now. Roll the fucking music.
Not yet. We need to, we haven't done this the past couple episodes. We do need to throw that shout out to Astralborn, the guys at Astralborn for making our music, the most professional fucking thing about this podcast. So, mucho gracias. Very, very much thanks to you guys for that. And then please email us, ask40k@gmail.com. That's 40QUE@gmail.com. Just send us your thoughts. Send us your prayers. Send us random letters and just email us when you're drunk. I don't care.
Send me a Mexican pizza. It'll make the envelope taste better. Just lick the envelope. Put it in the mailbox.
I don't think they can email a Mexican pizza, but we'll, Get on it, Bill Gates.
Find you find a fucking way.
Bezos, I'm looking at you.
He don't care. He's going to space.
Up to space to get away from us.